Okay, so welcome to this latest Travolution webcast. I'm delighted that today I've been joined by Paul, who's the founder and chief executive of Intuitive. Welcome, Paul. How are you?
Very well, thank you, Lee. Thanks for having me.
Dialing in from home today. We'll talk about what's going on with your business and why you're at home a bit later on.
Sure.
Last week we reported on a good bit of business you'd done in the lockdown period during the pandemic. That you'd built a new system for the new thomascook.com OTA, which has emerged from obviously the old collapsed business. And obviously that was a key piece of business for you over that period. Just give us a bit of a background about that deal and getting that business and what it's done for you as a company, as a tech provider for travel.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, first off, I mean, it's great to be involved in the project in the first place. I mean, as I said in the press release last week, that there are not many good news stories in travel in 2020, and so to be central to one of those is absolutely fabulous. Mm-hmm. And I think I kind of obviously knew there was a lot of respect for the brand, but it wasn't until the press release went out last week that the kind of breadth and the depth of the warmth for the brand really hit me, and I was kind of quite surprised by that. I mean, obviously the brand failed last year and left some hard memories for some people. Yeah. But the goodwill generally in the industry, I think, is really powerful, and it's fabulous to be involved in that. Yeah. From a project.
Was that goodwill within the industry as well? Because, like you said, some people would have got stung by the collapse of the old Thomas Cook. I'm sure a lot of customers remember Thomas Cook with a lot of affection.
Yeah, I mean, and obviously quite a few of those people actually work in the new setup also, so they're particularly enthusiastic. Yeah. I did see some nice man on BBC who said he thought it was disgusting. I think, but aside from that, yeah. I think it's almost like 95% positive. I met with the CTO on Tuesday. And he said that obviously they tracked the response much more carefully than I did, and he said it was like an overwhelmingly good response to the.
Yeah, and it came almost a year to the. I mean, one of the criticisms was it came almost a year to the day of the collapse, but the timing was simply one of those things. It wasn't intentional.
Yeah, surely happenstance, I think, and actually there were some plans to try and launch a bit earlier, but obviously with the changing market, that was fairly hard to judge.
So this work came to you what, before lockdown, during? Did you have what was the timing for you?
Yeah, well, we started talking to Thomas Cook in about February time. And we had the framework for a deal in March. We didn't finally sign the contract till a bit later, but we actually started on the project in March, which, to be honest anyway, would have been a pretty hard project to deliver in 4 or 5 months. But yeah, within 2 weeks of starting, we'd fully locked down our office. And so, we were working out how we're all going to work whilst working from home and trying to do a project that was pretty tough. But actually, it went incredibly smoothly, I think, which was a bit of a surprise. I mean, and just in a more general sense, the transition from pretty much 100% of people working in our office to 100% of people working from home, and our ability to just deliver a BAU service of technical support and feature development, and that whole process went fairly smoothly. There were a couple of little changes in the project as we went along, but it's an OTA. And iVector is a very good system for OTAs. So the core reservation platform we pretty much ships off the shelf. Obviously, there's a lot of configuration and setup and training and all of those things. And the main piece of work was a new product that we built pretty much on the fly, which is a product that we're going to call Deal Finder that at some point we'll launch in the next month or two. But that's the cache-based search that supports the website. And so we're pretty excited about the possibilities of that. Love Holidays have been running a cache first booking journey for some years, and mainly when we speak to people about what they want on their website, they sum up fairly simply that they would quite like what Love Holidays have on their site. So we set about building a new cache technology. I mean, we did inherit some product from the past, But obviously the goals are speed and breadth. And we set ourselves a target of a 300 millisecond search response time, which we did, whilst offering all the breadth of search, breadth by geography and ability to search by theme, and also broad date searching as well. So yeah, so that the main technical challenge for us was that.
Yeah. So how did you, when all this disruption happened, and like I know you closed the offices and everyone suddenly scattered to all their various homes working remotely.
Yeah.
Kind of assume that would put any tech projects very much either on the back burner, or at least you'd start to miss deadlines. Very difficult to do, especially with little warning. What did you have to do to make sure you were doing this project and making sure you were hitting your timings and your KPIs, but also keeping your existing customers happy as well?
Yeah, well, I mean, from a BAU perspective for our existing customers, most of the sort of feature development and most of those projects were put on hold, not all, but most. So mainly our job was just, well, to provide technical support. We went to the existing customers and said, look, is there anything we can do to help you? And we probably asked that question a few too many times, because they said, actually, can you just stop asking us, would be the first thing you could do to help. So we did provide some help, like some extra reporting to help with cancellations and all of those types of things.
Yeah.
The main iVector developments, we did about 300 days of feature development in the core product. And to be honest, for us, that's not a huge burden. We have the teams in place to do that. In terms of Deal Finder, it's probably a bit more interesting, because this has been a bit of a pet project of mine. And there was a weird moment that probably wouldn't have happened had we've all been working in the office. But for about 4 weeks, I worked pretty much full time on the cache to make it so. But partly because it was my promises that were made to Thomas Cook that we could make it work. And it wasn't always entirely clear it was going to work by the time we finished. So we recruited a new software architect about 18 months ago, and him and I pretty much worked on that full time for about 4 or 5 weeks.
So all hands to the pump.
Yes. I actually I sent some mild coded warnings in our board papers to say there is some small risk that actually this is really hard and it's possible it won't work. If it does work, it will be brilliant though. So
and so this is something you wanted to do pre the Thomas Cook deal and pre-COVID. So interesting that it's circumstance that makes you actually go ahead and do the things you've always wanted to do. I suppose if there's a positive out of this for you, not just yourselves, but for companies more broadly, is that it is giving them the opportunity to sort of get done the things they've been putting off and really wanted to do.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, we're in a relatively comfortable financial position. We secured a CBILS loan. Obviously, the Thomas Cook project has helped us financially, but we have one other major project that we also won in the earlier part of this year. So those projects have just kept us really busy, and it's allowed us to retain the whole team. We do have a bit of spare capacity, so we are taking on some other projects and some other roadmap projects that we had queued up. But I suppose, I mean, yeah, more broadly, in amongst the catastrophe, there are going to be opportunities in amongst all of this, and those that can see through the storm, there are going to be great opportunities when we come out of this.
So you were able to retain all staff. You didn't. No furlough, no people on furlough. You retained everyone full time.
Yeah, we furloughed a handful of people, fewer than 10, and we have all but 1.5 of those back now. Our receptionist sadly doesn't have too much to do because the office is broadly closed. However, we will find work for her and we will keep her on into 2021. Yeah. And as a strict business decision, maybe will we retain all of the staff? But this would be a horrible time for people to go and try and find a job. And so we're certainly in the financial position that we'll be able to support the team. So I'm 98% confident that we'll be able to carry the whole Intuitive team into 2021.
And what was a challenge around everyone then suddenly working remotely? Did you have logistical challenges, tech challenges to enable that to happen?
Well, a bit. We closed the office about 10 days before the official lockdown, so we went quite early. But still, that was a decision that was made within 48 hours. I think I saw the graph that said that we were going to be Italy in about 3 weeks' time. As I said, we're done here. I mean, partly for our own benefit, but from a social responsibility perspective also. And then, weirdly, really, I mean, we did a trial run, but we didn't really have that much in the way of technical challenges. I mean, rather tediously, there were some issues with the VPN and all of those things, but we just went round, we supported the team that needed help with their tech and so on. And actually, I don't know, we were just able to work, and perhaps I could compare it with doing video conference calls. Before all of this happened, if you scheduled a video conference call, the default was Skype, and then you would get going on Skype, and then you spend 10 minutes trying to make Skype work, and then you give up on the audio and do the audio on the landline and all of those things. And then within about a day, all of us have got a preferred tool that works seamlessly and beautifully and all of those things. And I guess it's just, it's a great enforced experiment that no one would have asked for, that has just revealed all of these opportunities and all of these trends. And if you'd have asked me to predict, like personally, how productive I'd be at home, how much I enjoyed working from home, my predictions would have been extremely poor. And just, as I've maintained to the team for quite a long time, that anyone who can work as or more effectively from home will be allowed to do so for the foreseeable future. Now, at some point, when the advice changes, I can't imagine that we want really anyone working 100% from home. Yeah. So that transition and our productivity, which we measure quite carefully all of the time anyway, was as good as if we were in the office. I mean, there were some probably less salient things that we don't really notice the costs of, a slowly changing culture, perhaps. And we're obviously all going completely bonkers. But apart from that, from a pure sort of business output perspective, we've actually just had a fantastic time of it for the last few months. So.
You said they've sort of almost discovered the platforms and the tools to help this happen. I mean, collaboration is one. You always hear, if you're in the office, you have that conversation you didn't plan to have over the water cooler, and an idea comes from it. Do you worry there's a missed opportunity cost here because you're not in the office together, or have the teams somehow replicated that on digital platforms virtually?
I think it's a great question. I mean, I'd say I was out on a cycle ride with my local club, and I was halfway through a sentence, and there was something I was extremely confident about that my mind changed mid-sentence, which was, if you think of the benefits of all being in an office together, and culture and collaboration and ideas and all of those things, and I sort of taken it as a self-evident truth that whatever costs we used to bear for those benefits, well, it was worth paying. Yeah. And I kind of reflect, taking a step back, the very real cost of just the cost of transport, but the commuting time, and you're paying for an office and rent and all of those things. But actually also for me, maybe I'm a bit of a chatterbox, but I mean, in the office, there is lots of very good, fun conversation and all of those things. But I mean, I'm radically more productive at home. And so is everyone else probably, because I'm not distracting them.
So long term then, what is the future for, do you downsize the office? I know it's in Croydon, you're still in Croydon, aren't you? So do you downsize floor space there and saving those costs long term and have a different way of working long term?
Yeah, we haven't done that yet. Partly because we signed a giant, great big long lease. So I mean, we haven't gone bonkers. I mean, if there was an easy opportunity to have done so, we probably would have thought of that, because as you say, at minimum, very few people are going to want to give up the freedoms and the convenience and all of those things, sure. Even after all this is over. So yeah, we would probably downsize the space if we had the chance to do so. Yeah. But that isn't the case. I think what I would say in all of this is that, for reasons unclear to anyone, I get up earlier now than I used to before I commuted to the office, and I get up at 5:45, and by 5:48 I'm sitting in front of my computer with a coffee. And I just think that's amazing. And at 4 o'clock on Friday afternoon, I consider that I've done a hard enough week's work, and I'm in my gym by 4:02. And there was just this kind of wonderful freedom. And I'd say from a management perspective, what's very interesting was that we put a kind of range of a sort of infrastructure to manage objectives and goals and KPIs and reporting and all of those things that would have seemed, even for me, intensely bureaucratic if we'd all been working together. But actually, and we have wound some of those back now, but as a management team, we've never executed better either. So you've got all these benefits of convenience and ease and freedom and productivity and all of those things. But I'm worried that the stuff that is being lost, and we're slowly being lured into the matrix, but we're pleased. We're just, we're sitting there, these glum people with our screens brightening up our faces, and we're just sort of slowly becoming plugged in, but sort of grateful for it. And for every benefit and efficiency, there's normally something lost, and the thing that gets lost is the human contact. So we probably underestimate the psychological value of that human contact.
And it's probably easier in the short term for established teams to go and do this, because that human connection's been established human to human, face to face, over many years, and so this is considered to be just a continuation of that in a different format. I guess the difficulty will be when the teams start changing, new people come in. You want to integrate people as your existing team has. It's going to be difficult to do that if you're purely virtual. I can see companies wanting to bring young and develop people more face to face, and that's where their opportunities are, to be with the management team and impress them in a face to face environment.
Yeah, be careful what you wish for, I'd say to those people. But I think you're right. I mean, to be honest, yes. I mean, that very much struck me. In a July, somebody approached us about an intern position starting in September. And actually, internships, we don't do that many of them, but the ones we don't proactively really seek them out. But if somebody asked to come and work for us, we would normally say yes, and we'd find a role for them. Somebody came to us in July, and we went yes, and then we thought, actually, no, how are we going to do
Manage
this?
him. Yeah.
Yeah, so we said no. And I don't know. I mean, I guess in an environment where we're partially returned to the office, that problem is fantastically easier. Yeah. I think my view would be the easiest thing to do is run an office where everybody's there all of the time, and the second easiest thing to do is when everyone is working from home, and the hardest thing to do is a hybrid situation where you've got some mixture of people in and out and all of those things. But I also think one of the strange things I found was that it probably took me, and this is a bit embarrassing, but probably 2 months before I got good at working from home. And I think I just underestimated the rituals and the habits and the scaffolding that you need to work in a productive way. And now, because I'm less distracted, and I formed all of those habits, and I can work on that really well from home. But I think back in the office, maintaining 2 sets of rituals might be quite hard, I would think. And in the same way, I think it could be hard to run a business where some people are in and some people are out. Like, how do you do stand-ups and things like that? And there's just a whole range of things that would be harder.
And do you think it's different for different businesses? I mean, you're a technology business. You kind of would expect just the nature of what you do to be more applicable to a virtual setting. Other sectors not so. Other sectors just wouldn't work. So are you benefiting from the fact of the type of business you are?
Yeah, well, I can't speak outside of our experience, but if you look at the type of people we employ, they're young, they're very smart, very technically switched on, mainly software developers, and so you would imagine that those guys are almost as good as you're going to get in terms of a smooth transition from office to home.
Yeah, it's funny because quite often it's the younger employees who are probably less inclined to work from home, because especially if they live in London, they're probably a flat maybe is not somewhere where they want to spend all their days. And if you work for a company like Google or some of the big tech companies, they provide amazing office spaces with free food and laundry and all that stuff. But and it's intended to get them into the office to spend most of their time there. So for the younger generation coming through, it's all right for us oldies who've got children at home, and we can do a bit of work-life balance. But actually, they quite like being in the office, not just for the social side of it, but it's actually quite a nice place to be compared to where they live. So there's a danger there we miss out on that, maybe.
Yeah, that's a fair observation. I think that as an employer, there's an increasing pressure to relax working conditions and all of those things. We introduced flexible work hours probably 18 months ago or something like that. And that kind of pressure, I think particularly in the tech industry, of being able to work from home is seen as a privilege and a benefit and something to be fought for. So yeah, it's kind of quite interesting now, because as an older person, perhaps you've got a house, you don't live in town, you've got a nice garden, and you've got a room, albeit a guest bedroom, unfortunately not an office, but you've got space to work and all of those things. And the people that most would have hankered after working from home before this had happened have the worst conditions to do so. But I think I met quite a lot of guys, some of my team went home and lived with their parents, for example, also. So yeah, there's a whole range of things. And yeah, I think there's in just the same way, there's a great unevenness on business models and the impact over the last 6 months. I think the same on individuals. I mean, I was very fortunate that my wife's at home, so I didn't have to do any homeschooling or any of those things. And so so the burden has fallen very, very unevenly on people.
I think that's true. You can almost tell how it's impacted individuals by whether they've gained weight or lost weight. I'm in the lost weight. I started running again and doing exercise, so I've lost a fair amount of weight. But there's people out there who appear to have gone the other way. So you can almost tell.
Yeah, well, that's true.
Taking the positives out of lockdown.
Yeah, I guess if there has been a blessing of the last 6 months, it has been very clement.
Yes.
I had a very simple rule that if it's sunny at 11 o'clock, I'm allowed to ride my bike for an hour before lunch. And so, I mean, I think we had a little bit of bad weather about 3 weeks ago, and I suddenly thought, goodness, this could be a long, dark winter.
Yeah, I've noticed that as well. Started snacking more, because when it gets dark, you just need something to just perk you up. Just go back to the Thomas Cook project we started talking about. I guess before all this happened, there was a move in travel technology to, become more off the shelf, to create products that work, that you could take off the shelf with a minimum amount of integration and get moving on it, rather than doing everything bespoke, rather than developing everything uniquely and bespoke for every customer. It's very hard work, very expensive to do that. So I guess that you benefited from that process, I guess, for the new customer, where they could take an existing product with the iVector product and pretty much use that as it is with a minimal amount of development. I know you built the deal finder, but is that what you're benefiting from, that move towards more off the shelf type approach to travel technology?
Yeah, I think a couple of points there. I suppose if you're a startup and you want to go from 0 to live in 5 months, or you haven't got time to build a reservation system, so you're going to have to go and buy one. Now, those opportunities don't come around all that often, albeit perhaps we might expect more of them in the next 12 to 24 months, but perhaps. Yeah, maybe. I mean, I think if you look at the Atoll list 10 years ago, the top 10 was fairly dominated by tour operators. And when we look this year, we haven't seen it yet, but it won't. If there'll only be one tour operator in the top 10, and so I guess the world has changed quite a lot. And if you look at the people who send people on holidays, they aren't really tour operators anymore, with the exception of TUI and their airlines or major OTAs. For a long time, the major OTAs wanted they have much bigger tech teams than we have, also, but also a fair degree of their value was associated with the ownership of the IP of their tech. And so for quite a long time, our ability to penetrate into the likes of Love Holidays, for example, would have been challenged, partly because we've got 200 people in our tech team and we can build our own things, but also from a value perspective. But I think over time, it was certainly my perception that that has changed, and just it's a sprint for volume, and it's not so important who owns the IP for the tech, but how can I sell more and faster, and how can I move in a faster way.
Yeah.
Just as a general point, I think you're right to call out just a more modular world, though, and we're running two projects right now. One to integrate into Zoho CRM as a CRM solution, and we're about to kick off a project with to integrate into Microsoft Power BI as a BI tool. And I just think, just we've never run a walled garden philosophy really anywhere, and we've always would have been very happy to integrate. But I think, gone are the days where you were the only tech provider and you had a mainframe in the basement and all of those things. You pretty much have to play in a nice way with other tech. And as a reservation system provider, you're not going to be best of breed CRM probably, and you are so you can't do all of those things. And so I think our ability and fairly strong desire, I think, to sit within an ecosystem of third parties and integrate with those is good for us for the future.
Yeah, because that's going to be key for the customers of yours going forward, is that ability to be flexible around what you offer to the consumer. I think the Thomas Cook brand has already said, look, we've started off offering the destinations we can currently fly to, and obviously that can change. Every week. It's been changing every week with different announcements from the government. So no more is it true today to say it's key to be flexible in a way that the old tour operators could never be flexible because of their model and the tech behind it. So that is going to be key. And obviously there's a move to cloud and SaaS-based systems as well, because that offers flexibility. I mean, you can see that just going even further. That's the future, isn't it? That cloud-based SaaS models.
Yeah, I mean, and from a Thomas Cook perspective, for them, I mean, from a Thomas Cook management team perspective, is this the best or worst time to launch an OTA? They probably would be unsure. If I was the investor in Thomas Cook, I would probably be thinking this is the best time to invest in an OTA. So who knows? But I think what's great about the Thomas Cook project is they just have less baggage, and we can just move really fast. So we've got 3 or 4 parallel streams of work to enable them to launch new products and new features on the website that will be live in the next two to three months.
Okay. The deal finder tech that you built, just explain why that's different, what it does, why it's going to take you to the next level if you use it as an OTA or as a Thomas Cook.
I think the world has probably not been quite ready for this. You need the supplier capabilities to feed the cache in the first place, and so you're kind of drawing in data from third parties and flight aggregators and all of those things. And to an extent, it's a fairly brave proposition to base your primary search on a cache. It's very hard to fill the cache. Counterintuitively, by the time you take 18 months departure dates and 20 durations and 15 PAX combinations and all of those things, you end up with about 200,000 combinations per hotel. And so if you sell, 100,000 hotels, you've got some giant number that you have to try and build every day, and that there are some challenges there. I think the key insight for us was the common solution for a cache is to pre-build all of the packages, take the flights, take the hotels, combine them, price them, and then put them in a big fat table, and then use technological brute force to get the search performance. Yeah. And our approach is slightly different, where we store those data pre-combined and then price them on the fly. And whilst that's more skillful and more nuanced challenge, it makes the data much easier to update, and it is easier to maintain. And so it's got very low latency update, and then it's just all the breadth and the speed. And as I said, one of the challenges is when somebody comes along and they have 6 adults and 17 nights, have you got those data in the cache? But we've been able to use AWS Lambdas that gives us almost infinite scale, so we can run all of those calculations, push them into the database. So it feels like the timing is right. Love Holidays have been running cash as primary for ages. No one else does. But as you know, on the web, speed is everything, and so being able to deliver sub 300 millisecond broad searches, then with filtering capability, somebody can come up.
Yeah, well, I'm going to say that's the key, especially going forward at the moment. If we're going to get into a bit of a sticky market, as people, are concerned about travel, we've got a recession with us, and probably with us for a while. So people are going to be careful with their money as well. They're going to want to know you've got broad amounts of product available, but they don't want necessarily to be delivered that broad amount, at the interface. They want it to be personalized and tailored to them. So you've got to try and somehow do all that broad calculation underneath the table, and then bring above the table what the consumer wants, that personalized set of results, which is tough. It's not that's more than just a catch and a search. You've got to be much more intuitive with the consumer, business intelligence, as you mentioned, and so on. So
yeah, but also with the cash, it helps support them on the journey, where you come along and you think, well, actually, I just want a beach holiday in August, and then I search beach holiday in August, and I go, actually, I quite fancy a Greek island, and then actually, I probably want 4 or 5 star. And if all of that response is pretty much immediate, and the reason we chose 300 milliseconds is that's about the time people notice there's a lag.
Yeah.
And so if you can do all of that and all of that engagement and make that very fast, that makes for a nice experience for the user.
Yeah, it's that promise of that. Well, it's sentiment-based search, isn't it, for the consumer? Sure. I don't need to tell you where I'm flying from. I don't even need to tell you my precise dates. Give you some idea of how many people in the group, obviously. But really, other than that, you sell me something. And,
yeah, for sure.
Don't let me. I don't have to tell you everything I want. You tell me what I want.
Yeah, I mean, I can grump about that, because the hardest searches to serve technically are also the most useless, as in the fewer criteria you have from the customer. You can't show them something all that useful, and it's computationally super expensive. But more optimistically, there's a merchandising opportunity there, isn't there? And the smaller amount of data you have from the customer, that's your opportunity to put in front of them what you want to put in front of them. So, yeah, so we're super excited about this, as you can probably tell.
Yeah. Look, our time's nearly up, but let's just leave us with a few thoughts. You are a tech provider to the industry, and you're not a holiday company. You're not selling holidays, but you are part of the industry, and your future depends on the industry sort of flourishing and getting back to something like normality. What do you, looking forward to 2021? What do you hope to see? What should we expect, do you think? Are there timescales you're looking at for maybe things getting back to some sort of normality, or are we in this for a bit longer yet?
Yeah, well, I guess within our customer base, and we've talked to our customers obviously on a frequent basis, and they're not uniformly impacted by this. I mean, our customers in Ireland, for example, have had an even worse time than we have here in the UK. In England rather, so it's pretty grim out there. And I guess if you look at this year, it's been a bit of a roller coaster. And if you'd have asked me in July, we'd have all said, "Hooray, we can all go on holiday again." And if you ask me now, the kind of roller coaster has not ended on a high as we come into the last quarter of this year. Yeah. And I guess you would look at the announcements from the government and think, "Hey, we might be in this for another 6 months," and that's not super well timed for peak trading. So it'll be interesting to see what happens going into next year. I suppose I've been reflecting that at least we haven't had a news story where somebody with asymptomatic COVID has got on a plane and has infected 20 people around them, because you would think that would be the end. And at the very least, it would seem, in the absence of news stories, that flying seems to be comparatively safe. So that is a good thing. Yeah. And I guess, well, for most of the customers, they've had no significant revenues since March. And anyway, the next 3 months are not a time where our customers would see significant income. and then, well, if people are holding out for peaks, that seems like a challenge also. But I think most customers, most travel businesses have got to be pretty cognizant of where we are, and most of them will have to make considerable savings. I think the sort of latest job scheme is not enough to protect jobs in travel, sadly, and so as a sort of hibernation or semi hibernation. I would say, though, I mean, as gloomy as the near-term trading prospects are, most of our customers are sort of, well, partly resigned perhaps, but also looking to next year to think, okay, how do we come out of this stronger? Because we all know, as painful as this is, there are going to be opportunities, and sort of the more painful this is, the greater the chance that there'll be fantastic opportunities afterwards.
I do get a sense, and speaking to a few recently, that those on a sort of path of digital transformation, which many were on beforehand, which does involve investment in tech,
sure,
you know, are doubling down on that, or at least they're certainly not reining back.
Sure.
And reining back in other areas, but where they're not saying let's stop is on that progress. It's difficult for them, and then maybe look to you to provide more for less, because budgets are going to be constrained. But I guess that's where it's going to be for a tech provider like you. You're going to have to look at ways of providing more for them, but for less, because budgets will be constrained.
Yeah, I suppose one more positive thing. I mean, we have a couple of customers in the business travel sector. It's hard to imagine business travel ever recovering from this. We've all spent 6 months learning how not to travel, but there is very little substitute for a holiday, and that demand will have to return. I mean, this is clear, but I can only speak from personal experience anyway. Although, as I'm fond of saying, after all of this, we're all going to need a really good holiday, just perhaps not with our families.
Yeah, we did see that in the summer when quarantine did go. The demand went straight back up again. I mean, we were literally waiting for the next place where they could go on holiday. So it's clearly there, and it will come back, I'm sure, when we're allowed to travel. Sure. Paul, it's been great chatting, and great to have a catch up. And I think, like you said, it's good to hear some positive stuff that is going on, and we hope for more of it, obviously. And best of luck. And no doubt at some point we'll see you in person sometime in the near future. Yeah,
that would be nice. Okay, Lee, thank you so much.
Cheers. Thanks a lot.
Bye bye.